Okay, welcome back to the Caribou Media Outdoors podcast. With me this afternoon is John Lusk from Lusk Archery Adventures. Welcome.
Thank you, Josh. I've been looking forward to this. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. We both have a mild obsession with broadheads.
It's easy to get addicted to that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it really is, and they're making them so well now. Like, I mean, you have a very specific set of testing procedures, which are awesome to see and watch. I'm always excited when I see one of your videos pop up because I know right off the bat it's going to be great. Just for people that might be living under a rock and haven't heard of you, can you just let everybody know who you are and what you do with your YouTube videos?
Yeah, so I'm John Lusk. I work full time as a pastor. That's like my main gig. I've been doing that pretty much all my adult life. Well, since I graduated from college, but on the side, I've always been a bow hunter. I grew up that way. My dad was a competitive archer and bow hunter, so I've been doing that since I was a little kid. Except for when I lived over in Asia doing mission work. It's like considered a sin to kill animals because they believe in
Right.
resurrection or reincarnation, stuff like that. But anyway, so I've just been bow hunting pretty much most of my life, and I have an engineering degree. So I like kind of the technical side of things, the behind the
Mm.
scenes, how things operate, that kind of stuff. And as it relates to broadheads, I've just, like you said, gotten obsessed with broadheads because, early on, I remember going to Walmart before I went on a bow hunt, picked up the cheapest pack of broadheads I could find, like Allen something. Okay, I don't even
Alan,
remember the
yeah,
model.
yeah.
Yeah, and I shot one into a deer, and it just broke off. Like the broadhead just fell apart, and I'm like, man, what's up with
No,
that?
that's
And
not
that
supposed to
was,
happen.
yeah, so supposed to happen. That was the beginning of my education that all broadheads are not created equal.
Mm.
And so then I just got into testing them, and just from my own testing, just into animals and stuff. Then I actually, what happened is I won a broadhead, a really expensive broadhead from Bishop Archery in like a little drawing that they had on Archery Talk. And I was, playing around with it. And the guy that designed them, he said, "Hey, I see you have a little YouTube channel." It really wasn't much back then. He said, "Why don't you do a test of this broadhead and see what it does?" And I didn't even know what to do. So I just started shooting it into stuff. I shot it into a pumpkin, like you
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
rotation. I
yeah.
shot it into a frozen hog shoulder and some
Oh,
old
yeah.
dinner plates that I found around the house. I was just shooting it. And then it got a lot of views. And I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. And so then I started doing that with more broadheads and more broadheads. And then over time, the last, 5, 6 years, my process has evolved quite a bit to where now it's a pretty good regimen to test broadheads. So I test about 50, 60 broadheads a year. And I video it and post the video on my YouTube channel, Lusk Archery Adventures. So people can just, if they're wondering, like, hey, how does this broadhead work? Or I heard about this broadhead, they could just go there and check it out, search Lusk in the name of any broadhead.
Hmm.
And if I've tested
Boom.
almost 300. Yeah, boom, it'll come up.
That's awesome. I know you have a video you put out at the beginning of every year explaining your process. Can you give just a little Cole's Notes version of what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So I consider, like, what you want a broadhead to be lethal, and every broadhead can be lethal, right? I mean, any broadhead could work with the right situation and so forth, but I want to separate it and come up with a rating system. So I test them in what I consider the 5 most important areas affecting lethality, and not in any order. It's the flight forgiveness, and then the sharpness, and not just the initial sharpness, but the edge retention of the blade after it penetrates through the hide. How well does it keep its edge? And then the durability. Does it keep its shape and it's just what it is, its form, throughout the entire penetration of the animal, or does it fall apart? And then penetration, like how deeply does it penetrate? And then the cut size. What is the cut size? How much tissue are we cutting? So each of those, I give like a 20-point rating of, and then together it makes 100 points. And so you get kind of a broadhead score. And I have different tests that I do to evaluate each of those 5 areas. And so I don't know if you want me to explain those briefly or if that's good
Sure.
enough.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Okay, so say flight, what I use now is I've gone through all different kinds of flight tests. I used to shoot them at 80 yards and 70 yards, then I went to 40,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was at 30 a bunch. But what I use now is I use a crossbow because I can get them much more consistent. I can mount my crossbow on a tripod and I got a scope. So the only thing that differs from one bolt to the next is the broadhead I screw on. Everything else is exactly the same. So it's a good test of the flight forgiveness. So that's what I do for flight. And then for say penetration, I use 2 different mediums. I use layered cardboard and just see how many layers does it penetrate through. And then I use another system. I take a half inch of MDF, medium density fiberboard, and sandwich it between 2 1/3 inch layers of rubber foam mat. And I put that in front of Clear Ballistics is the brand, FBI gel, so FBI
Mm-hmm.
rated gel. And I test the penetration into that. And so that's penetration. Then durability, I like durability. So I shoot it 3 times into medium density fiberboard, half inch MDF, and then I see how much it's been damaged. And then I'll shoot it into twice into 22 gauge steel sheet metal. And so I shoot into that, see what damage there is. And then the final test is I shoot it into cinder block and see how it performs in that. And so that's the durability. Yeah, a lot of them do. And that's okay. It's not a pass fail, It's
No,
kind of more
no.
fun than anything. That just accounts for 3 points of the 100 points the cinder block does. But it is good to see what a broadhead can handle, what it can't handle. And then for the sharpness, I use this machine made by Edge on Up. It's a sharpness tester, and it has this very uniform. And all my tests are really uniform. You got to have uniform tests, or they don't have comparative value. The data
That's right.
that you derive from
That's
it.
right.
So everything is consistent and uniform. And so they use this copolymer wire, and then you press down with the edge and see how many grams of force it takes on a little scale, how many grams of force it takes to cut through that wire. So I do that as initial sharpness. Then after one of the penetration tests, it's gone through a bunch of stuff, I test it again to see the edge retention. And then I measure the just the cut size, and that's pretty easy to measure. So those are the tests that I do, and each one gets a score, and they're kind of fun to watch. So the channel's grown quite a bit
Oh
over
yeah.
time because
Yeah.
it's fun to watch them. And even if you're not going to buy the broadhead, you're like, hey man, let's see what happens with this one. It's fun to do that.
Yeah, I started a YouTube channel about 4 years ago now, and funny how I usually do different types of gear and things like that, and I did a couple broadhead videos, and just like everybody wants to watch the broadhead videos, right? And it's like
Funny.
I think in like 4 months I did one on mechanicals. I had about 5 or 6 different mechanicals, and I think it's sitting at like 96,000 views in 4
Ooh,
months. And I was like, whoa, I need
wow,
to do
that's
more
really
of these.
good. Right?
So
That's
it's
funny.
just,
That's how I got pulled in because I saw YouTube's policies on hunting. I thought, I don't go on enough hunts, and they're not promoting enough views of the bloody hunts.
right,
But
right.
broadheads, I go, man, that's year round.
Yeah.
And YouTube doesn't have a problem with it. And people want to know, like, how do you know what broadhead to use? Do you just
Hmm.
read the back of the package or ask your buddy, ask someone at the bow shop, that can or cannot be good. But this provides objective data points any testing does to see how does it perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't do anything to the scale you did. I basically weighed them to see their consistency. I shot them at a field point to see how their grouping was, and I got some FBI gel, ballistics
Hmm.
gel from Clear Ballistics as well. But they were out of the 10%, so they gave me 20% gel, which is
Ooh,
even
that native
more,
gel, that's hard.
which is even denser. So I
Yeah.
had to explain to people like, listen, some of these
Mm.
mechanicals, like say the Sevr has a pivot system when it reaches dense material. Same with the Beast, like the blades are going to retract. So when you see it retract, it's not that it's a crappy broadhead. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to in the gel, right? Because the comments were like, "Oh, it's garbage. I don't want it." I'm like, you have to understand it's doing exactly what it's designed to do, right? Like, so the ballistics gel is great for seeing that wound channel and the penetration, but yeah, just I was always a fixed blade guy until this year, actually. You know, I got into hunting later in life, and you hear a few people say that, oh, mechanical broadheads don't open. Well, maybe like years and years and years ago, but there's definitely been enough changes in technology now that they're pretty amazing now, and pretty significant. So yeah,
True.
it's definitely a hot topic item for sure. Because
Yeah.
and I even had somebody comment and said, "Can you hurt?" As I was doing like little clips as the broadhead would arrive at my house and be like, "Oh, we got the annihilators today. Can't wait to try these." And somebody commented, "Can you hurry up and get this done? I'm going on a mule deer hunt. I need to know which one to take with me."
That's funny.
It's like, oh, I didn't realize you were relying on me to help you that way, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the T2 and like just incredible, just amazing. Anyway, one thing I do like to ask everybody is, can you think back to the first time you picked up a bow and tell us what that was like and how that kind of transitioned into archery for you? Or sorry, bow hunting for you?
Yeah. So, like I said, as a kid, my dad was a bow hunter. So I remember getting a little toy bow that shot like the little suction cup arrows, and I just go around the house shooting my brother and stuff like that. I mean, that was like that first bow. Then I got, a more stout, it's still recurve, but, that I could, as a little kid, I even have a picture of it. I found it the other day where I'm like, I think 4 years old and I'm drawing this little bow back. And so I remember doing that, and then I was probably like 11 or 12 going on my first bow hunt. We lived in Louisiana, and we'd hunt hogs in this place in Slidell, Louisiana, called Honey Island Swamp. It's like a public hunting area, and they had a lot of hogs. So we'd go hunting in there together, and I never got a hog with my bow, but my dad would. My dad was really good. But that's what got me into it. And then later in life, after college and stuff, I was like, man, I want to start doing it again, and so I've been doing it ever since.
That's great. What's you're shooting the Elite Eon this year?
Yeah, so yeah, that's right. So I don't even have it set up yet. I shot the Elite Era last year, loved it, carbon. I just like lighter weight, and it's still not super light, but lighter. And then they come out with the Eon. It's so similar. It's very similar, just different cable and string system basically is about it. And they have some other gear attachments that are kind of like incorporated into it, but I haven't even set it up yet. I just got it pretty recently, and I'll get it all set up and I'll be shooting that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I had Josh Sidebottom on from Elite. And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
he was awesome. I had shot the Ethos last year,
Oh, you
and
did. I didn't know you were an
oh
elite
yeah,
guy.
I loved it.
Oh.
Well, I've kind of bounced around. I've I shot Hoyt. My first bow was a Hoyt Helix Ultra in 2019,
Hmm.
and love that. And then I jumped over to a Prime because when I first got into bow hunting, I found Solo Hunter and Timbernet and binge watched his show, and all I
Hmm.
saw was prime, 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 prime. So so as
Yeah.
soon as if a dealer opened up not too far away, I was driving there to just go look, but I knew I was going to buy one. And then so I shot that for a couple of years, and then moved over to the Elites, and it's been fantastic. But there's
That's good.
it's I don't change bows every year, but it's definitely hard when all the promotional stuff comes out and you're like, oh,
I know.
oh, that looks nice. Oh,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
Monday you want a Hoyt, Wednesday you want a Matthews, Thursday you're into Prime. Like as they all kind of come out, it's so they're so attractive. They catch me
Yeah.
every time.
I used to do an annual bow battle, and I love those
Okay.
videos. I lived in Iowa until we moved here to Texas 2 years ago. And in Iowa, they had a great bow shop, and I would go there, and I get there before it would open. They'd open it for me, and then they'd have all the bows set up for me, all the new ones, flagship bows, and so I could do a really good comparative test. And those videos I mean, by far were my best, most watched videos. I used to love doing those.
Hmm.
But then now, I just gotten busy doing other things, and now I just focus on hunting and my broadhead testing. But that was fun. I love shooting all these different bows and seeing how they perform.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get my hands on 2 or 3 of the new ones this year to start doing some bow reviews.
Mm.
So that's a little added thing that'll be hopefully coming down the pipe for me. But
Yeah, a lot
so
of views there. You'll like that.
yeah, yeah. When you use do you use the bishop arrows for hunting too? Like, what's your hunting
Oh,
arrow
I
setup?
do. Yeah, it's the same. I use the same. Yeah, I got one right here. I use the same. Where is it? Right here. They call him FOC King, which is it's funny because they came up with that, and then the guy's wife saw it written. Like you write out FOCKING. It doesn't look so nice. And he's like, oh man, I didn't even think about that. He'd already come up with the name.
I
But
didn't look at
anyway,
it first.
but yeah, I shoot these. I've become friends with the owner. It's just one dude does it all himself, and he's got a full time job in addition to that.
Mhm.
But I shoot their arrows for my testing and for my hunting, and their crossbow bolts as well. And they have heavier arrow. When I went to Africa and hunted Cape Buffalo, I used their heavier arrow that I do when I shoot into cinder block because I don't want it to break. And then I could shoot the same arrow in the cinder block, I don't know, 20, 30, sometimes 50 times before. They don't usually break. It's just the insert sometimes comes dislodged. That's the
Right,
only problem I've had.
right. And did you always have a love of traveling, like, to Africa to hunt, or did that kind of evolve over time, or is that
That's a
always
good
an
question. No, okay, here's how that started in my heart, in my mind. My dad and I used to dream when I was just a little kid about one day we're going to go on this African safari. And I have this vivid memory of being at this carnival and I found $1 on the ground. I'm like, Dad, I found $1. He's like, son, save it for Africa. And I'm like, yeah. And so I was always had this dream of one day I'm going to go there. Well, he was in the Coast Guard and we would travel around a lot. So I hunted in different environments, which I liked. And then in the ministry, my early years in the ministry, again, traveling around a lot, I hunted in different environments, but I still had this dream of Africa in the back of my mind. Well, then this one buddy, he decided he was going to take me on a hunt in Canada. And so we went and hunted in Manitoba. That was my first international hunt. I was like,
nice?
whoa, that was awesome. He paid for everything. And then I told him the story about my dad and about this Africa thing. And he goes, John, I'm going to take you to Africa. And I'm like, nah, Sean, you don't have to do that. And he's like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
Well, a few
careful, I'll
years
hold you to
later,
it.
I know, right? A few years later, he took me to Africa. And oh my gosh, I loved it. And then as the channel evolved, it gave me a bit of ability to be able to travel more.
Mhm.
And so I went to Africa again because I wanted to hunt some dangerous game like a
Okay.
Cape buffalo. But then
So
I
big.
got this bug for just adventure hunting. I like different species. I really love to just kind of try something new. And so I was in Colorado. There's a lot of species there, and got to do some there. And then up and went to Newfoundland for moose, and then
Oh,
just this
wow.
last year went to Argentina for red stag and water buffalo. So I've been really fortunate and blessed to be able to take some cool adventure trips like that.
Yeah, woodland caribou is, I think, my favorite animal,
Ooh.
and hence my title.
Yeah, there you go.
And I have 2 friends I met, who are from, last year, I think, from, Newfoundland, and they
Ah.
live here in Ontario now, and, their dad died a couple years ago, and their mom
Mhm.
is gonna get, I think they get residents can get a moose tag, I believe it's every other year, because there's about 500,000 people on the island and 275,000 moose on the island, so,
Wow,
yeah. So,
that's crazy.
they've asked me to come over there with them to film the whole adventure.
Ah.
So the story is gonna be the boys are coming home to help mom get her moose now that dad's gone.
Ah.
So I'm like, "This is gonna be amazing no matter how it goes down." Like, just to so I'm looking forward to get over there, but woodland caribou is, is right at the top of my list. Of course, moose as well, but yeah. So if you only had one animal to hunt, what do you think you would? The horrible question, but what do you think it would be?
Well, I've been whittling down on my bucket list, and so
Hmm.
like for a while it was an elk, and then I got an elk, and then it
Mhm.
was a mountain lion, and then Cape buffalo, and then a moose, and so I'm like checking a lot off the list. But so I've taken off most of the ones that I want to get, but if I like my favorite thing to hunt, I'd say is like elk or hogs. Like I
Mhm.
love hunting hog. Hogs are just so fun because it's like a live 3D shoot. It's
Right.
so
Yeah.
interactive. You're stalking and you bump the hogs and then you can see them again over there. And
Yeah.
it's just a lot of opportunities if you're in a good place for them. So I love that. But remaining, like if I what's remaining that I really want to get, I don't know, because I've taken so many already. I got a nice like brown bear. I don't know if it'll show up there. This brown bear. Can you see that
Oh,
brown bear?
wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got that 2 years ago. That was on my bison. Yeah, that was on my
Oh,
list.
yeah.
Like I forget about these animals, and so now I've thought about going to Australia and
Oh,
going after a water buffalo up in Australia. Way up there above Darwin, and so I've looked into that. And maybe I'll do that one day.
yeah, red stag's in there for me too. I'd love to do it in Scotland, but I don't think they allow bow hunting over there, unfortunately.
Yeah, in Europe, there's a lot of places that don't allow it like that.
Mhm. It's a shame.
Yeah, I like red stag too. Argentina was really good because they're free range there in Argentina, so they're not as big as like in New Zealand where they're just mammoth freak, kind of things. But it was a really really cool experience. I loved it.
And did you use the same outfitter every time you went, or would you go with different ones?
I've only been to each place I go, it's a different outfitter, but in Argentina, it was one called Poitawe, and a friend had recommended it. They have a good um, base of archery knowledge and so forth, and so they're known for that. And so that's I went with Poitawe and had an amazing time.
Mhm. So for 2024, you put out your top, is it your top 5?
Oh yeah. Well, what I do is I have for each year I score all the broadheads and I create an Excel spreadsheet. And then the tests have not changed very much over the last 3 years, little modifications. And so I like put together, like I combined all 3 years of testing. And so you have 3 years of testing, 200, I think it's 280 broadheads.
Wow.
And then that I ranked them. And so, well, they're ranked by the score they get. And so then I listed, I released that spreadsheet and the video summarized it all. But then I just like said, hey, here was the top 5 fixed blade. Here's the top 5 mechanicals. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily the best, but in my
No, no.
scoring system, yeah, they
Mhm.
came out. And sometimes they nudged by like 100th of a point. So
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't mean the others are all
Splitting hairs.
crap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's cool to see. And there are some that just really dominate, like your hat. I mean, when it comes to mechanicals, Sevr, man, I mean durability. My goodness,
Crazy.
I mean, I have these dry scapula that I got, and I shot one sever into. I had to keep going through the elk scapula, but like I think it was 12 different scapula, including the really hard part before the tip got a little broken. I've shot one into cinder block 3 times. It's still going strong. I just was like, okay, I'm done doing this. But
Gee.
yes, sometimes there's a separation like that. But usually there's a lot, like in fixed blade, there's a lot of really great ones.
Mhm. Do you ever have one where you think, "Oh, this is gonna be amazing," and then you're completely blown away, surprised by the result?
You mean like in a bad way? Like
Good
it's
good or
bad.
good or bad?
Yeah, there's some that usually I can tell. Like there's some
Yeah.
like say in Exodus, I lost count at 60 animals shooting a Q80 Exodus. I
Oh,
shot
wow.
slick tricks before that and wasp boss bullets before that. But the Exodus was just a performer, man. And so when I tested it with my regimen, I knew it was going to do really well. But and then sometimes I update my regimen a little bit and I'll retest, and it just always does so well. And then like Slick Trick, I know they're always going to do really well. Sometimes there's a head that people really like that just falls apart,
Hmm.
and that people don't like that. Like the fans don't like that. Like a G5 mega
Attack.
meat or dead meat. Okay, you
You get
know,
all the keyboard warriors attacking you.
yeah, you know, and I get it. It worked for them. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And you know, but then there's what I really like are the heads that look super weird, and just
Yeah,
you go, okay, let's see what this does.
yeah.
People love to watch those too, where you're like, what's going to happen with that? And then a lot of times they just fall apart and don't do well. But I sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes, most of the time, I'm not.
And do you change what you personally take out based off of the testing that you've done, or do you have a few
Yeah,
personal favorites?
yeah, that's a good question, Josh. I if something performs really well in my lab, then I love to take it into the field. And you know, I'll typically in an average year, maybe I'll get 10 or 15 animals, you know, and it's not that many. It's not, I haven't, you know, I don't live where there's like a million hogs and stuff like that. And I was in Iowa, you know, you got deer, you got turkey, and then whatever else you travel to do. But I like to use whatever broadheads have performed really well for me in the testing. I like to use on hunts, but I do have some favorites just because they've worked really well, and that's how I gauge it. Like, I mean, I'm not like loyal to anything. Sometimes I get
Mhm.
offered sponsorships. I'm like, I don't want it. Like
Yeah,
I want to be free to shoot whatever I want. But then there's some that just I just keep using because I go, man, I really want to take this animal and I know this is gonna do well. So I'm gonna
yeah,
use that one, you know, and then if there's like a crummy little animal, okay, let me try this other one, you know. But
yeah.
there's too many to use all of them. And you know, when a head performs really well too, especially if it's not a big giant company, I reach out to them and ask them, especially if they're like direct to consumer, if they use online sales, I'll ask them if they'll give me a discount code so I can pass
Mhm.
on the savings to my viewers. And that list, I think I have like 25
It's
discount
huge.
codes now.
Yeah.
It really helps. You know, you
Oh,
save
yeah.
10% here or there. Hey, you know, it's something. So I love doing that.
That's great. And you went to the ATA show this year.
I did. Yeah.
How was that?
You know, okay, for me, it was pretty hard because last year was horrible physically. I
Mhm.
had 5 surgeries last year,
Wow.
and I haven't had, like, I don't think I've ever had a surgery my whole life, and then I have 5 last year, and it was all in the last half of the year, 3 back surgeries and then 2 to remove blood clots caused by the surgeries. But you know, it's been really hard, and I'm still in, honestly, horrible pain. I lost all the strength of one of my quads. There was such severe nerve damage
Oh,
from
wow.
this pinched nerve. It was a crushed nerve that I've been doing physical therapy for 6 months, and it's just now getting to where I can walk upstairs normally. And but it's still really weak. But anyway, that caused me to have to cancel a lot of good hunts. Man, I had
Mm.
this hunt with Aaron Snyder. We're going to
Oh,
Tapa, Texas. He's a friend from Colorado, and
mhm.
we were going to Tapa, Texas to hunt aoudad sheep in the Davis Mountains. And oh man, I was looking so forward to that. Canceled. And then I have a lot of hunts coming up this year that I'm just praying like, oh God, please, you know, I hope I don't have to cancel that one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Aaron's actually coming on tonight.
oh,
So,
get out of here, yes.
he's already said I told him, "No, I'm talking to John this afternoon." He goes, "Okay, you tell him 2 things. Hello, and, he wants the 3 of us to come back on here at some point to do this again."
I love that. You know, Aaron, I got to know him because he was in Colorado when I lived in Colorado years ago.
Mhm.
And I don't know how I first, oh, I know. On Archery Talk, I was buying some used Sitka gear and it was from him. And
Oh,
so like he gets it free. And then
yeah,
like the
yeah.
tail had blood stains on it and stuff, but I couldn't afford Sitka gear. So that's how we first met. And
That's
then I
awesome.
ended up going to Kifaru. They were based in Colorado, pretty close to me
Yeah.
before. So I bought a pack from him, and we just became good friends. And oh man, he gave me so much incredible advice. He still does. But then when he had his 500th podcast about a year ago, and it was going to be like a 3 hour one. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, I was going to have Joe. I thought about having Joe Rogan, thought about having campaigns, but I want to have you on, and I want to talk broadheads for 3 hours. So we
Well,
did 3 hours and 20 minutes. And
yeah.
Josh, what was amazing is, I don't know if you ever listened to it. I mean, it's a lot
Oh,
to
I
listen
did.
to, but
I
you
did.
did.
Oh, yeah.
My testing, I hunt as much as I can, but the bulk of it is in my test process. His is from guiding and watching about 80 animals a year die with
Hmm.
different broadheads. And so we were comparing results broadhead by broadhead. And I kid you not, I mean, almost to the broadhead, our list was just the same. Like,
Yeah.
and it was very validating for my tests and validating for him going his observations in the field. So it was really a cool collab working together like that. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I'd
He's
love to do
amazing.
that. I'd love to,
I,
and tell him I said hello tonight as well.
yeah. Yeah. He's incredible. I've learned so much from him. Just, like I said, I got into this later in life, and I did archery when I was 7 and fell in love with it, and did recurve on the archery team in high school for a little bit, and then and
Oh.
then I completely got away from it. And it wasn't until a friend of mine from the high school archery team called me, and he's like, I just left Bass Pro, and there's this thing called a compound bow. He's like, you you need to go buy one. And I was like, yeah. At the time, I'm like, I got 2 kids that are young, that are in all sports and all kinds of other things. I'm like, I don't have $1,500 to spend on a compound. So he's like, I'm gonna bring mine over. You got to try it out. So he brings it over, and I live on a farm. So we had just moved up here, and I'm right-handed, but I'm left eye dominant, so I shoot left.
Oh. Mhm.
So he comes up, he's right-handed, he shoots right. So he's like, "Here, try it." I'm like, "Mike, I'm gonna miss the target probably by about 3 feet." He's like, just do it. Just do it. It's a lot of fun. So he had these brand new expensive aluminum arrows that he bought, and I was launching them into the cornfield. Didn't hit the target whatsoever. He's like, "Dude, those are so expensive." I'm like, "I'm sorry, we'll go find them." Anyway, that kind of lit the flame for me a little bit, and I started jumping down the rabbit hole and learning everything that I could. And then I found him when he was on the podcast with Gritty, and then
Oh.
they just kind of, like, my first arrow setup was basically exactly what he had recommended, right? Because
Mm.
I just learned so much stuff from him over the years. And then as this has gone on, I've got a couple of Kifaru bags and some of their other stuff, and I just wanted to support him and everything that he's doing. And then I started this, and I messaged him, and he was like, "Yeah, when do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Wow." I can't,
That's cool.
I can't believe that this is actually going to happen. And then the other day he's like, "So when we're done, we need to get John to come back on, and we'll do it again." The three of us. I'm like, "Sure, that would be amazing." Yeah. So
Yeah, that would be. That'd be cool.
the one,
Can I just comment on something real quick? When you
yeah,
said as a kid you shot a bow when you're 7 or something like that, that very thing. See, I was raised shooting. Like my dad was really into archery. Like I said, my mom as well. But I've had a passion to want to introduce kids into archery, and so years ago I used to always work every summer at like a teen camp and a preteen camp, and I got certified to be an archery instructor, and then I got him to invest, and we set up archery ranges and gave trophies, and I loved giving people a taste of it. And it
hmm,
was interesting that a lot of times it was people that weren't really athletic that just they just loved it. Like
yeah,
it was a way to have a sport that wasn't a sport, kind of.
oh
And
yeah,
so I loved it. And even here in Dallas at our church, we had this big thing for all of our middle schoolers where I taught them how to shoot. I just love introducing kids to it.
just want to take a quick break to talk to you about a couple of things that I've been using that I think might benefit you. One is this Numa Outdoors gear. This is in their Kaza OV pattern, which is great whitetail pattern when you're up in a tree in the fall and late season. They also have a Kaza pattern which has more green in it, which is good for spring through to the fall. Numa has given me a code to give to you of Caribou Media 20, which will save you 20% at checkout. Another product here that I've been using for years now is the Bulldog targets. This is a Canadian made target. They're made in Manitoba. They have a lifetime warranty. I've used that warranty twice now on a couple of my larger targets that are outside. It's very simple, very easy. These targets are 2-finger removal every single time, which is incredible. field point only target. Bulldog's been gracious enough to give me a 20% discount code to give to you. At checkout, use code BD20-Caribou-Media. That'll save you 20% on these awesome targets. Now back to the show. Well, that's kind of where I started. So we went on a family vacation. My parents divorced when I was 4. So my brother and I was 4, my brother was 6. But when I was 7, we went to this place that was run by the YMCA. So it was like an outdoor, they did a lot of sport events, and they under your in your like hotel room that you had, they'd slide a piece of paper under the door every morning, and it was called the Jottings. And you'd look, and it would say kids aged 8 to 12 meet at the swim dock to do whatever, and then kids 12 to 15 go down to the boat dock and learn how to flip a kayak. And then after lunch, there's archery behind the gym. And I was kind of an introverted kid, didn't like doing new things. And I had a friend there, and she was like, we're going, right? So she was the opposite of me. And I remember going, and I loved it. And then my mom had a friend who had a farm. So when she'd go visit, she dragged me along because I was too young to be left home alone. And they'd want to go off and chat and drink coffee and not be bugged by this kid. So her friend goes into the closet and pulls out this like $30 little, fiberglass bow and says, here, and hands me like 3 arrows, missing fletchings and stuff. And she's like, there's hay bales out there for the horses. Just go nuts. We want to chat. Like, get out of here. So that's kind of where it all started for me. So up at my cottage, there's an antique store in town, and I was down there, and hanging on the wall was this red fiberglass bow, exactly like the one that I had. And I was like, I'm taking that.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
The serving was coming apart. I'm like, I'll fix that. I just need to have that. I need to have that as that memory, right? So
that's really cool. That's a great story.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, the ones that I did for my tests were the Sevr Hybrid 1.5, the Beast 2.3 inch cut, the Dead Meat and the T2 from G5, and then the Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. That's cool. That's quite the one.
Yeah, you're covering the whole gamut there.
Yeah, that was and the Crimson Talon Battle Axe.
Oh yeah, they used to make those. Yeah, I tested those.
Falling apart. And then the fixed blade one I did was for the Iron Will single bevel, the Crimson Talon Croc, which I got to play around with the prototypes before they released them, which was a pretty cool experience.
Did you know Dave?
I met him. I was talking back and forth with him. We were just from social media going back and forth, and he said, like, I've got this thing coming down the pipe that I'd love to get you to shoot out to distance, because he said he didn't have the ability to do it. And I'm like, I live on a 4-acre farm. My driveway is 1,700 feet long. I can shoot as far as I want. Like, I'll help you out however I can. So he's like, okay, I'm going to send you a prototype. It's not going to be polished. It's just going to be like a hunk of metal, but don't tell anybody about it. And let me know what issues you find. So I said, well, what I'll do is I film everything anyway. I'm not going to release that, but I'll just send you the footage, and I'll talk to the camera like I'm talking to you and just be like, and so I did it, and I sent him my short list of notes that I found out, and then it came out, and it was great. And then I didn't hear anything from him for a while, and then I can't remember if I heard it from.
I shared it in one of my videos.
That was I think I heard it from you that he had passed away.
Oh, it was so sad. You know what's funny is, okay, so I met him at an ATA in Indy several years ago, right after he had bought Crimson Talon. And so we were talking broadheads and stuff, and then we became friends. Like, we were talking on the phone quite a bit, and he's just so passionate about broadhead design. And then I was moving here to Texas, and we bought a house in Melissa. It's a little suburb, northeast part of the DFW area. And then I just happened to look on the back of a package of Crimson Talon, and it said the mailing address Melissa, Texas. So I asked him, I go, wait, do you live in Melissa? And he's
We're
like,
neighbors.
yeah, we're neighbors. So we moved in, but he was already getting chemo then. And so he could
Okay.
never be around anybody with any risk of germs.
Right.
So we never got to hang out again in 2 years. And then, or a year and a half, and he passed away. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, you tested those as a fixed blade Crocs.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were great. I think they'd be a great one for bear. Just the size of them is so big. But
Yeah, that's right.
I had this come up. I was talking actually to Casey from Sevr, and
Yeah.
I said, have you ever gotten any feedback from any trad shooters that have tried using mechanicals? And he's like, it's funny you say that. Because if you think about it, if you're shooting a lower poundage bow, like he said, we're getting people saying that with 40, 45, 50 pounds, they're having no problems with like a 1.5. Why wouldn't that mean that the trad community couldn't use it? I said, you get a lot of hate probably coming in your direction, but and he said that they're actually trying that now. They've sent some out to see if they can get some feedback as to, I'm like, oh, that'll be interesting. I don't know.
That is interesting.
Something to
I'd
think
be
about.
curious. Yeah.
So with your surgery, did you not have a very eventful season, I guess, last year?
I had zero after. Well, in April, I went to Argentina. So that was awesome. I mean, I got a
Right.
nice red stag and then a water buffalo. And then I came back, and a few weeks later, I went on a hog hunt because I wanted to use my crossbow. I wanted to test it out. And that was awesome. And then so that was April. Then May is when I just stood up one day and I went right back down. And then I was in the ER like about 3 days later. I couldn't move my leg at all.
Oh,
So
wow.
from that, there was no more hunting from then on. And I got to where like I'd had a couple buddies come over and do the shooting for my tests, and then I would edit the footage, and I could do all the filming stuff, the non-shooting stuff. But that way, I was on short-term disability for a while, and I got way ahead in the tests. And then now, I can shoot and I can walk around. I just can't walk very far.
Right.
But I'm glad I can still do my testing. But yeah, and I'm really hoping. I'll be honest, what I'm really hoping for. Okay, I want to shoot hogs. I mean, there's a buddy that's asking me to come shoot hogs. Like he lives 15 minutes away, and I'm close to healed enough to do that. If I can sit in a blind or something. But then, okay, last year in May, when I was in the hospital, there's a buddy that we've become good friends just through my channel, and he's in the royal family in United Arab Emirates. You'd think it's a scam, but it's not.
I'm not sending you any money.
Right? But he has sent me some stuff, let me tell you. And so he said, John, he reached out to me, he goes, 1 year from now, June 2025, I want you to come here to UAE, fly into Dubai. And he goes, you'll be the first American to ever bow hunt on the president's private whatever, place. He said the only other bow hunter is him in the whole thing. And so I said, can I film it and post it? He goes, absolutely. He goes, then I'm going to take you to Africa and I'll pay for all these animals. And he listed like 5 animals like that I haven't gotten yet. He knows what I've gotten. And I'm like, dude, that's incentive to go to physical therapy. So I am just,
that's right.
Like,
do your exercises. Okay.
I mean, I pray and I hope. I thought I'd be way better than I am now, but I'm just hoping that I can still go on that trip.
Oh yeah, that would be spectacular,
wouldn't it? Gosh.
Wow. Well, I know all hunting stories are memorable, but is there one that sticks out that you want to share with everybody?
Oh gosh. You're right. There's a few that just pop into the forefront of my mind. Okay, but
it's up to you.
I'll share this one. Okay, I'm allowing. I'll share others, but this one, and Aaron knows this story. But okay, back when I lived in Colorado, I was a minister of a pretty big church, and I had 2 campus ministers that I was training, and they were guide level fly fishermen. So they mentored me in fly fishing, and then I mentored them in bow hunting. So then we trained. run with 50-pound packs, Kifaru pack, and run these hills and stuff. And finally came down to it's time to go on this hunt. So we're going in a over-the-counter unit, public land in Colorado, and it's way the honking heck back there. And so we hike way back there, this remote drainage. And the first night we went out to Glass, we came back, we'd set up our tents, went out to Glass, came back, bears had ravaged 2 of our 3 tents. And our food was hung like we did everything by the book. I think they were just curious, maybe smelled human scent on them. But so that was like, oh man, we taped them up best we could. And then the next morning we go out and we're just cow calling we were together every whatever, 15 or 20 minutes, something like that. We cow called and a bugle came right back. We're like, oh, because we hadn't really heard much around there. And so then we put a stock on it. We fanned out, put a stock on it, and man, it came out 40 yards. I saw it and I drilled it. That was with an Exodus, and just the arrow just disappeared behind its shoulder. It was quartering to me, but it went like, I don't know, 30 yards and then fell over. It was just incredible. Well, then me and my 2 buddies are, preparing it. We're just going to debone it and pack it out. Took a whole day to debone it because we didn't really know we're doing that well, and then packed it all up. And we were so far back there, and the way we got in was so steep. We thought there's no way with 120 pounds on that we'd be able to get back out that way. So we thought we're going to go out this drainage and then go around. Well, we're on the edge of the Great Sand Dunes National Park. People don't know, but the tallest sand dunes in North America are in Colorado. It's like a weird thing. And so we hike out. It takes about, I don't know, hours. I almost died at one point on the edge. Like I'm hiking and the ground gave out because it's sand based, gave out under me, and I'm sliding down. I stuck in my trekking pole, and I stopped, and I'm right on the edge, and my buddies were taking a break behind me, and I just was yelling like, Brian! There's a loud river below.
Break's over.
I know. Finally, he comes up and saved me. Then we kept hiking. Well, we hiked and hiked and hiked. Then we got to the sand dunes. And man, you're hiking on sand. Dude, that's hard. And you're going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
You go up and slide back down. And so we hiked till it was dusk. And we started at 8 in the morning. Water had long run out. And then I remembered that in archery talk, I'd found this guy's contact information that had horses and packed out animals in that area. And I had written it down just in case. So then I looked it up in my phone and I find this guy's number. And my 2 buddies' phones already dead. Mine, I was on red. And I call him up. I'm like, Gary? His name's Gary. I'm like, Gary, you don't know me, but I heard about you on archery talk. And I tell him the whole thing. I go, me and my buddies, we're spent. Like we're about to die. And we still have miles and miles to go. And could you come help us? And like, then he goes, wait, who is this? And I'm like, oh, shoot, man. Like,
I got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I got 30 seconds. And then I tell him again, and he goes, man, horses. He goes, I haven't been on a horse since my wife got bucked off one in front of me, broke her neck, and died. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Then he starts telling stories about being in the Marines and his buddies' brains were blown out in his lap. And he's telling all these stories. And I'm like, hey, Gary, I'm sorry about all that, but I'm like, I really am gonna run out. So then he's like, okay. He goes, send me, leave it in a tree, leave everything in a tree, go back to your camp. And then I'll meet you tomorrow at noon, and I'll get it. And I go, okay, and mark the GPS coordinates. I go, okay. So we do all that. Get back midnight. We got to our car, and that was without any heavy weight, just our packs. And then the next day, that night, this major blizzard came through. I mean, big blizzard. Trees were knocked down, and it's snowing super hard. And this is like in September or early October, snowing super hard. And I'm like, oh man, is this guy going to come? And I'm out there waiting and like, he's not coming. Then I see 2 shadows through the snowstorm on horses wearing these long riders, these coats like straight out of a Clint Eastwood movie, these big hats, and they come. I'm like, Gary, yeah, like Gary to the rescue. And
Yeah.
like he took his horses and pulled the logs that were blocking my forerunner from being able to get out. And then he goes, you know, we'll go, we'll be back. A couple hours later, came back, had my elk. And I mean, it was just talk about an
Wow.
adventure. I mean, it was
That's
anything but
incredible.
just go out and shoot an elk. I mean, the bears, the near-death experience, the on the side of the hill calling this guy, and then we became good friends. We still stay in touch. We've gone on hunts together since then. But yeah, that was one of my favorite adventures.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's people ask why we do this, and that's what it's about. It's about the adventure, it's start to finish from the very beginning. Like I went out to BC a couple years ago to hunt
Mm.
elk because our elk population in Ontario is less than minuscule. I think we have about 1,200
Oh,
animals, and
oh, I didn't know that.
they release like 100 tags and 3,000 people apply. So
Oh
so
gosh.
if you get one, congratulations, you're never getting another one. So my wife, her cousin is a guide in BC for Finley River Outfitters.
Oh,
So so for Christmas, 2 years ago, we're going around getting Christmas presents, and we're parked in a parking lot. She goes, "Okay, I got to tell you something." I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "I'm only telling you this because you have to change your holidays at work." I'm like, "Okay." She said, "For Christmas, you're going out to BC to hunt elk with Daniel." And I'm like, "Don't do that. That's not fair. That's not nice. It's not funny. Like I can't
wait, you
because
thought she was
I
teasing?
thought she was joking, and I didn't know that he was a guide at this point. I'm like,
Oh,
because
okay.
they had come here on a family reunion, and I talked about it and that how I wanted to do that, but I'm like, I don't have $10,000 to spend on an elk hunt, and when maybe one day, but not right now. And then she says, "No, no, he's a guide now. He's a hunter now, and he works for Finley River Outfitters. So you're going." And then like the wheels just started turning. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I need a backpack. I need boots. I need,"
Um,
and I'm thinking, "Oh, I wanted to upgrade this or that." And I'm like, "Well, I can't do that because I got to buy stuff I don't even have yet." So then it kind of evolved into um, a family trip. So I was panicking about flying with all my stuff, and I'm not afraid of flying, but just the idea of showing up there and, "Oh no, your boat didn't show up," and then be like, "Oh,
I
that's game
know.
over," right? So
Yeah, yeah.
so we hummed and hawed about it, and she said, "Well, why don't we do this?" Because I had a set amount of holidays when I could leave work, and she says, I? Why doesn't she drive out there? It's about a 4 or 5 day drive for us." With my daughter, and they'll have a little across Canada adventure. And my son and I will fly there and meet them and then hang out as a family. And then they will fly home. We'll go hunting and then we will drive back because I wanted that across Canada experience too.
Mm, cool.
It's definitely not the cheapest way to do it, but it was incredible. It's quite the
Mm,
experience, right? So my son was 16 at the time and talking about the camera, and I'm like, okay, so like just try and keep it in focus if you can because I'm trying to film the whole thing. And we had a few awesome encounters, nothing where we could seal the deal, but it's just from the minute we got there it was an adventure. Like they've got
mm,
bears everywhere. Like,
wow.
so they live in Mackenzie, BC, which is already it's 17 hours north of Vancouver. So
Gosh.
it's already a fairly remote place. But there'd be bears walking around, going through people's garbage. There's some like on your roof. We
Oh,
had one. My daughter was coming out through the garage to go outside, and there was one in there. The garage door was open. There was one sitting in the next to the recycling bin, trying to go through to find food. Like
oh my gosh.
literally everywhere. So we're packing up the truck before we leave, and one of his friends was going to come with us, and he literally lived around the corner. And it was around 9 o'clock, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go, get some sleep. We'll see you in the morning." And Daniel's like, "Okay, jump in the truck. I'll drive you home." He's like, "No, no, 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 no. I'll just walk. Like I just live over there." He goes, "No, no, no. Get in the truck." And we literally drove around the corner, and he would have run into a bear.
Oh,
Like
wow.
they're everywhere out there. So So he's like packing like 3 spare tires on the he's got a sled deck on his truck and all this other stuff. I'm like, "Where are we going?" Like, this is I know we talked about it ahead of time, but he says, "You don't understand the road that we're taking," because we drove 8 hours north of his house. So
Mm,
we were extremely remote. The minute we left and turned onto the road to take to get there, you lost cell phone service right away. So
mm.
he's like, "We gotta be ready for everything." And just the drive up, and the mountains are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we get up to a bridge and he'd say, "Okay, come out and grab your camera, you're going to want to see this." And I walk out onto this bridge and it just looks like a painting, like just spectacular
Wow.
views, right? And then we get up there and we're going to where he wanted to build our site, and we turn around the corner and there's a herd of bison just running. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm used to turkey, black bear, whitetail, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
even when I went to get the tag, I was like, I only wanted to get an elk tag because I didn't want to get discouraged, or not discouraged. I didn't want to get sidetracked with something else and then lose out on getting an elk because we had to deal with a bear,
Oh, uh-huh. Oh,
right?
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was trying to stay focused, and the lady on the phone was like, "Are you sure you only want an elk tag? You know, we got a lot of stuff here." And I'm like scrolling through the list of everything that's in season at the time. I was like, "Nope, just an elk tag, please." So we go past the herd of bison and we get into our area. We're gonna camp. We get out. We start setting up the tents, and this massive black bear just starts scrolling through, just checking things out. And he's like, "We could have had lunch, but you had to get just one elk tag."
That's funny.
But yeah, it was incredible. It was an awesome experience, and I'm eager to get back there and try again. But
That's
it's
cool.
memories you'll have forever, right? That's just
Yeah. Man, isn't that and, when you can share it with other people too. I mean, I like going solo too. There's times I really like that, especially when I was younger.
yeah.
But then there's something about the camaraderie that you're out in the woods and you go through some crazy thing together. You're bonded for life. Like it's just there's nothing like it.
Hmm. Do you have any? Have you ever gone on any sheep hunts or have any drive for that?
I not a sheep. I did get a mountain goat. Where's that? See him back there. I don't know if you
Oh
can see
yeah.
him, but right above the Cape Buffalo. But yeah, that was in Colorado. I put in for sheep and a mountain goat every year. But then, okay, my neighbor worked for the Bighorn Sheep Society, and he gave me a tip that I'll give to everybody now because I'm not there anymore. I don't care. But he said, listen, because he knew as a bow hunter, he goes, don't apply for a bow tag. There's so few and so many people apply. Plus, the bow season is when they're changing coats. They don't have their pretty winter coat on. He goes,
Oh,
so what you want to apply for the last season rifle tag, and he said a nanny tag. Don't apply for a billy. You'll probably never get it. But a nanny tag, you have a bigger chance. And he goes, and most people can't tell the difference. He goes, you even have to take a test. You have to study and take a not so easy test before you can get the license to determine the
if
gender.
oh wow,
It's really that hard.
wow.
And so then I was like, okay, so I put in for that. And then I didn't get it. And I'm elk hunting. I came back from elk hunting. I had a bunch of messages on my phone that I hadn't played. And one of them, it just said unknown caller. And I usually just delete those without even
Mm.
thinking of it. But I thought for some reason I thought, let me play it. Well, it's like Parks and Wildlife and like Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they said, "Hey, you were selected as an alternate because somebody couldn't go, and do you want to go? It's in 3 weeks." And I didn't even look at my schedule. I'm like, "Yes."
Yes.
I'm like, and then I'm like, "Oh, I got to ask my wife, and I got to see
Yeah,
if I can do
that's
it
right.
work." But I'm like, "I'm in, man. I'm all
100%.
in."
Let's go.
Yeah, and so then I'm hoping the weather would be good, but in Colorado, third season, it can get really cold, but it changes a lot. But
Yeah.
I was already in shape because of the elk season and stuff. And me and my buddy, the same buddy that went on this, that's the elk that I talked about that we packed out.
Oh
It's
yeah.
right behind me there.
That's
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
that one. Yeah, it was nice for over the counter and public land. But anyway, so he went out with me, and wow, we had this crazy adventure. We climbed up one side where I glassed some the day before. we couldn't get close enough, and we got cliffed out. We had to come back down, and then we saw some like miles away at the top of this other mountain. So we hiked up there, and we were at was it 13,500 feet of
Wow.
elevation? It was almost a 14er, and we're coming around this area, and then I see this big old nanny, and I get down right away. It was a nanny, and we stalked up there, and she was coming towards us, and just drilled her. And then, okay, so then kind of the funny thing, like the bummer thing. So I got her. I shot her 3 times. I'm of the persuasion, like, if it's standing, put another
Yeah,
arrow.
put it down. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it goes, it falls down, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I go up to it, and it's a really steep, grassy area. It's just still grass, and there's snow around, but this is grass. And then I'm like, hey, Brian, like, did we get better pictures? I think it looks a little flatter, like about 10 feet below. And he's like, man, don't mess with it. I go, no, it's a little flatter. We get a better picture. So I grab it by the horn, and I start walking like down, and it starts sliding, and then it's like pulling me, and then
No. Oh no.
I roll, and I'm rolling. I'm not gonna let go. I'm rolling with it, and then when I let go,
Oh
it
no.
launched over the cliff. I mean, it was like those Olympic skiers, you know, they
Oh yeah.
these I mean, I looked, and I'm like, no, and then it just
Oh
went.
no.
I couldn't see it, and I ran to the edge, and I just couldn't see it. I'm glassing, couldn't see it. So we walked all the way around, all the way down. I find it like in the bottom in these bushes. I mean, it was pearly white, pristine. It's all bloody and dirty. And one of
Beat
the,
up.
the tips was just one of the tips had a little break to it, which I'm just so thankful. But anyway, we were able to clean it up, and then had to use some editing software, Photoshop, to get it to look white because it was so brown and ugly. But it was a cool adventure. And then, you know, the crazy thing is it tasted really good. Like,
Oh yeah.
I had no idea goat was that good. Like, man, it was a little tough, but it was tasty, great flavor to it.
I heard mountain lion's very good too.
Oh, I had that too. That's like, where's that one? Right there, mountain
There you
lion.
go.
Yeah, same thing. I was like, I don't know, something that eats other things. Is it really going to be good? You know, is that
Right.
healthy? I'd read something, but man, that was unbelievable. I made mountain lion brats, and then I had the steaks, and yeah, you're right. I didn't know. It was like, it's a white meat. It's like the other white meat, pork,
Right.
chicken, and then mountain lion. It was like pork. It was really good.
Wow. Yeah, I remember hearing Donnie Vincent talk about he cooked some up, and everybody that was with him had never had it or wouldn't touch it or anything, and then they brought it out, and he said it almost didn't make it to the table. People were just laughing at it so
Right?
much.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't believe that. Yeah.
So when you've traveled to hunt, are you able? I mean, it probably depends on the country you're in. Are you able to transport the meat back, or do you generally have to donate it?
Yeah, you usually have to donate it, and or like at some outfitters, they use it for their camp meat, like for the next hunters that come and
Right.
stuff like
Oh,
that.
that makes
Like
sense. Yeah.
like coming from Argentina, okay, I mean, we have the most porous border. I mean, people just come in all the time, right? You can bring in drugs, you get across the border, but hey, you're not allowed to bring meat here. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a craziest law. But so we couldn't bring any of the meat from there, but we did get to taste it. Same in Africa, all the laws, you can't bring it over.
Right.
But then, other places like the moose up in Newfoundland, oh my gosh, I mean, that thing was so tasty. I ate on that for about a year and a half. That was really
Oh
good.
wow.
Bison I drove, so I
Oh
just
okay.
I bought three. I bought three freezers. Like, I had three freezers in my house in Iowa for all of the meat, and it was so good. Yeah, but yeah, if it's overseas, typically you can't bring it back.
Typically, yeah. Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. That's too bad. Well, are there any broadheads for 2025 that you're looking forward to putting through the ringer?
Last year I got so many broadheads. Usually I'll go out and buy some on my own because I'm running out of, I want to test more heads. But in 2024, maybe Joe Rogan's shout out helped, but he's giving me good shout outs. We stay in touch, talking broadheads. He's really into it. But I got so many broadheads donated that I still have about 30 or 40 from
Oh,
last
wow.
year. And then there's all these new ones coming out this year. So
Hmm.
I've already done the testing for the first 12. I'm just editing the footage now. There's this one bishop one that I was eager to test, 125 grain, 1.6-inch cutting diameter 3 blade. It's the weirdest looking head. It just
Ooh.
flares out. Flew incredibly well. I
Oh,
could
wow.
not believe it, but that's a big cut. That's the biggest cutting fixed blade head I know of. I was
Yeah.
eager to test that, did very well. And then the Doom broadhead, was really eager to test that, and I tested that. That's a new one from last year. And then I'm really excited to test the new Annihilator katana that's coming out.
Yes.
I got to play with those at the ATA, and so they're sending me some of those. I'm looking forward to test. I mean, there's just so many new ones. I've got
So many.
this whole bin of the ones from last year. I'm like, but there's so many new ones. Like, I don't know. I'm going to get it all in, but yeah, and I know there's going to be many more new ones. And I have people contact me, hey, I'm designing a broadhead, and could I send one to you to test out? And so there's kind of startups like that that are fun to help. Oh, and then ELB Outdoors, I tested this head called a wedge head a few years ago. Well, now they've come out with a new improved one. They just sent them to me. They look really cool. I'm eager to test those. I've just got too many to even give shout outs to, but I'm eager to test all of them, see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time already. Thank you very much for jumping on here. I'll be sure to say hi to Aaron for you, and maybe we
Yeah.
can find some time to jump on and just see where it goes. That'd be awesome. We'd love to have
Yeah, I
you
would love to
come
do
back
that.
for
Man, and
sure. Yeah.
Josh, thanks for having me on. All that you're doing, you just do an incredible job with the YouTube channel and the podcasts, and I appreciate all you're doing for the industry. And you just come across very genuine, authentic, and I like
Oh, thank
that.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I always wanted to get something like this started, but like most
Mhm.
people, I've got a full-time job as well, and it's trying to balance family and job and this stuff. And I
Yeah.
tend to want to do this more sometimes than going to work. If anybody listening from my work, just ignore that. But yeah, so it's just a love that I have, and I kind of felt like with the videos, here's another backpack, right?
Mm.
I felt like I was kind of getting pigeonholed a little bit, so I wanted to branch
Mm.
out, and I'm like, well, 2025 is going to be the time to start it. So here we
Nice.
are.
Good for
And
you.
it's amazing.
Ooh.
I'm really surprised that I basically I connected with a lot of people through the channel, like a lot of companies through the channel. So that was great to be able to go back to those people and invite them to come on, and then going on Instagram and being able to connect with people that you'd never have the opportunity to really
Mm.
run into or speak to. And like social media brought us together, and same with
Mm.
Aaron, right? So it's like I've just been overwhelmed with the amount of people that are wanting to do it. And I thought,
Mm.
I'm not some huge name in the industry by
Mm.
any means, and
Mm.
people just love talking about this stuff. So it's great. I love it.
They
It's
do,
awesome.
and everybody started somewhere, and so people love to help other people do what they did. So
Yeah,
it's that's cool.
that's awesome. Well, you're welcome back anytime, and hopefully
Thanks, brother.
we can wrangle Aaron in with his busy schedule to get him
Yeah,
together. So
let's do it. Let's do
all
it.
right.
Thanks.
All right.
It's been an honor to be on with you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.